Viewers, welcome to SATV Talk Show Promise Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. Today our guest is Mr. Abdul Awal Mintoo, Industrialist and former president of FBCCI. Well, Mr. Mintoo, how are you?
Thank you, I'm okay, fine.
Well, it is known to all that you are one of the icons in the field of trade and commerce industry in Bangladesh, and very much experienced. Still, you are contributing in many ways to the development of Bangladesh. What is your understanding about the coming budget of Bangladesh?
Thank you again. You can actually take the budget in quite a few number of ways. First is take it very simple way. Like I have a family, I have some earning, and I have a lot of expenses. So first I have to look into my earning, how much I earn, I will be earning this year. Second is how much I have to spend, and then where do I spend that? Unfortunately, it also goes on the national level, same way. How much nation can earn, how much they are going to spend, but important factor in the budget that where you are going to spend that money, whatever you have. And so everybody has certain preferences or demand for the allocation. Say health sector, they will ask for more for the health sector. People in the education, they will ask for more in the education sector. But at the end of the day, it is the government who is supposed to set the priority. That how do I prioritize my available fund? But unfortunate part of in Bangladesh, the budget has become a kind of number only to confuse the people. Because whatever they say, we are going to earn revenue this year, we never achieve that. In an average, it is 25% less than what I say to the public on the day of budget. The second is the expenses. Now, expenses have two different type of expense. Number one is the revenue expense. Number two, what we call ADP or Annual Development Program. That means the bridges, the road, these kind of expenses. In an average, 70% they give for the revenue expense, and 30% allocated to 35% allocated to Annual Development Program. This ADP is fundamentally very important because the other money, revenue expenses, you just spend. You never get any return. But Annual Development Program, if you make a bridge, you can make you may not make money out of the bridge, but over a period of time, that has a social value, that has an economic value. So, or you can undertake some factory, for example, and then you'll be able to employ the people, you'll be able to export the goods. So it is two different type of expenses you can make. But unfortunate part in Bangladesh, number one, whatever amount you are going to earn these years, you only earn about 80% average. If you see in the last 10 years, whatever they say, this will be our earning this year, at the end of the day, it is only about 80%. The second, on the revenue expense, which consists about 70%, normally exceed the budget. The third, whatever you say on the Annual Development Program, which is very important for the long-term development of the country, long-term economic growth of the country, over there you will see whatever they allocate in the budget, they revise it to about 10-15% less in the next budget, and then actual expenditure never exceed more than 70% of the original figure they are giving to the people. So what I say, it is a confusion they make, kind of giving lot of hopes, but most of the lies also there. So now to conclude the answer, yes, we have a budget giving us the figure that this is what we will earn, this is what we will spend. At the end of the day, they never follow that. Therefore, I don't think of much of the budget, especially during this tenure of this government. Every time they are increasing the number, and this is false. So I think in the future, which I had been pushing for the last 10, 15 years, that there should be a Fiscal Responsibility Act, that whatever you say to the people, you must make sure this is true statement you are making.
Well, the budget of the next year is supposed to cross 7 lakh crores. And at the same time, dependence on the banking system, very much alarming. If the government takes all the money from the bank, then what will happen to the private sector?
Well, first of all, whatever I saw in the newspaper, the budget size will be 716,000 crores this year. And also I saw in the paper that total government revenue earning is going to be only 400,000 crores. So take out first roughly 25%. That means real revenue will be more than 325 to 335,000 crores. The second is, government has the other ways also to raise the money. They can first sell the treasury bond, treasury bills, which is short terms. Then they can take the money from the commercial banks. And they can increase the tax, but that they cannot increase in the middle of the year anyway, by law. And they can take the money from the commercial bank. Now this year, under the IMF conditions, they have to limit the instrument, what is we call savings bonds or savings certificates rather. Because savings certificate also compete for the money. That means if government is going to sell the savings certificate, take the money away, then I and you will not be able to deposit in the bank. So bank will have less money, then they will loan less amount of money to the people. But from that money, if government is going to take out more loan, then obviously what in economic terms it is called private sector will be crowded out. And this is what exactly what happening. This year, financial year 2022 to 23, what is going to be end in June, actually private sector loan in the banking, from the banking sector has reduced from 14% to 11.5%. That means either bank doesn't have any money for the private sector, or government is taking money, a loan from the banks. So that will obviously reduce the investment, increase the unemployment, and also reduce the economic growth. And economic growth has a lot to do with the economic development, means the improvement in the human life. Because from last year our dollar rate was 83 taka per dollar. This year already we are having 109 taka per dollar, and I think that in few months it might be 120, who knows what. So because most of the food items we import except rice right now, for example. The wheat, you need 9 million tons, we import about 8 million tons. Edible oil, whatever you need, you import 97% because you don't produce anything. Dal even, simple things, we import about 60%. If you talk ginger, turmeric, or rosun, whatever it is, everything we have to import. So if the dollar rate goes up, interest rate goes up, the cumulative effect on the price will be very, very high.
Well, thank you very much. You talked on very eloquently about the whole thing, and we'll go for a short break and come to you again.
Thank you.
Viewers, we're going for a short break and come very soon. Thank you. Viewers, welcome to SATV Talk Show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. We were having talks with Mr. Abdul Awal Mintoo, a promising icon in the field of trade and industry in Bangladesh. Well, Mr. Mintoo, you are talking on the Moody's approach to here. My question, different question is this. If all these things taken together, what is your forecast?
On the economic term, I'm sure.
In terms of-
Not on the politics. I think we are approaching a very critical point for Bangladesh. Now, to reiterate what I have already said, just shortly. Number one, we are intentionally creating a supply gap on the day-to-day necessities, especially the food items. So, supply gap more means more price, high price. Dollar value is going to be up, so the prices will be even more high. Interest rate will go up. That means cumulative, adding these three items together, the supply and demand gap, the interest rate and foreign exchange rate, the prices will go up much more than what you are seeing now. The second problem is, with the price, the cost of living will go high, but your earning will not go up much. If you see, on the contrary, in the last 2 years, our expenses gone up, day-to-day expenses for families, but the earning, the employment rate, not employment rate, money, your wages did not increase. So what is happening now in the family level? Income is less, expenses is more. So I think that most of the families will be most of the middle class will be in real problem. Now, I also see another problem is on the macroeconomic indicators. It is all opposite to each other. Supposed to be all in harmonious position. For example, another problem is the inconsistency and contradiction between the fiscal policy and the monetary policy. Because now, probably government is reduce the money supply to reduce the supply of money in the market to control the inflation. Central bank probably will raise the interest rate also to reduce the money supply in the market so that inflation is reduced. But that is also to reduce the demand of the people. Between all these things, our export is not increasing that much. So let's say like this, all the macroeconomic indicators, number one, export minus import. What I can see, our export, at one point, the growth was 30%, now down to around 10 to 12%. At one point, our import was something like 40-50%, now down to about 7%. So the gap between export and import, we used to meet from the remittances. Even that remittance, these years so far only growth is 2.2%. So our current account deficit, which is the international, our accounting with the international market, current account deficit is going up and up. And we are not getting enough investment, we are not getting enough loan. Whatever loan we have taken earlier, we have to start paying now.
And what is your analysis about anything which is positive in your eyes? Over the last 14 years, the government has done so many things. And according to the statement of the government, because yesterday I was talking to the planning minister, he was on the same dais talking to me on many issues. And his picture is something different. But the picture you have drawn by this time is not so promising indeed. So what are the best possibilities you visioned for this government in the field of economics?
The only positive thing right now I see on the tenacity of Bangladeshi people. No matter how poor they are, no matter how problematic life they are living, they still want to thrive. From the government perspective, I don't see a single initiative other than lot of lies to the people, lot of wrong information to the people. They even destroyed our statistic department. You know, this used to be Bureau of Statistics, a kind of semi-independent organization to give us the numbers. And when I was the president of FBCCI, we wrote a lot of letters to make it a fully autonomous independent body. Instead of doing that, they make it a government department under the Ministry of Planning. So now whatever the government says or their political bosses says, they come up with a number. You'll be surprised, they don't know how much rice we have produced, but they know how many betel nut trees we have, coconut trees we have, how many goats we have. So all kind of number you will see. But many of them are not right. And statistics is a fundamentally very important issue for people like us who want to invest, people like us who want to bring the foreign partners, people like us who think about the future. So Bangladeshi statistics today is the government numbers. You cannot trust on that. Based on anything, I don't see much positive in the short term. But in the long term, because Bangladeshi people have a tenacity, always fighting for their life, always fighting something good, I think only best hope is Bangladeshi people, not on the government will do something or is doing something which will create a lot of good things. But, for example, you know, I also appreciate, like, for example, Padda Bridge. There's a lot of harm done financially. But Padda Bridge itself is a good job done by the government, because you cannot really quantify the good economic value right away. Because when you have a bridge like that, people will invest on the other side. Millions of people will save their time, which they can use for instead of waiting in the ferries, instead of waiting in the launch for the launches, they now drive and can come and save 2 hours, say, for example. Now, what you are going to do with that 2 hours? If they have no job, if they cannot find employment, what you are going to do with that 2 hours? Probably we have a saying in Bangladesh that idle brain is the
devil's workshop.
Devil's workshop. So what will happen that I can see, if you take into social perspective, I think there will be a lot of social problem in the future in Bangladesh, and politics also contributing to it. If you are talking about the economic situation, I don't see anything good in the near future. If you are talking about the financial condition, I think it will be even worse, because most of the banks are looted only by the few people. And I have not seen a single initiative by the government to stop that. I mean, these days maybe less in the last few weeks or few months, but for the last 10 years, they have looted these banks. Now, banks are fundamentally very important for the financial development of the country. And financial development is very important for the economic growth, economic development. So everything and every government institutions virtually today are weakened or divided or destroyed. So if you ask me that what real positive things I can see, I'm very sorry, I'm not a very pessimistic person. Otherwise I would not be able to come from my rural base up to here. I'm a very positive mind for everything. But unfortunately, looking at everything, between the politics, between our social condition, economic condition, financial condition, at this point, I don't want to say I am pessimistic, but I am not very hopeful that something would be good in the near future.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go for a short break and come to you again. Viewers, we are going for a short break and come very soon. Thank you. Welcome to SATV Talk Show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. We are having talks with Mr. Abdul Awal Mintoo, a legendary figure in the field of trade and commerce industry in Bangladesh. Mr. Mintoo, now come to the point of global politics. You know very well, recently the US government has made an announcement on restriction of visa on certain conditions, especially for the persons who are believed to be responsible for or complicit in undermining democratic election process. How do you explain the whole things in a few sentences?
Well, we all want free, fair, acceptable election. Now, free, fair and acceptable is not same thing. Election always, if you say it is a good election, it has to be free, fair, acceptable and also competitive. That means all the political parties who want to join the election will join the election, and they must have the trust on the institutions like government, election commission, law and order people, everybody. But unfortunately, two big political parties or large political parties dominate the whole scene today. And one party has been so-called, whether they call it is the election, but I would not be terming these as an election, 2014 and 2018. In fact, I have a lot of doubt about the 2008 election also, which nobody raised the issue, but I can tell you that even I have a lot of doubt about the genuinity and the fairness of the 2008 election. So the last three elections, I don't think it was a free, fair and acceptable election. Now the government, of course, if you see, government want to do another election like that. And I don't think government should, and I don't think government should be allowed, and I don't think the people should allow such election in the future anymore to this government. And therefore, BNP on the street to make sure that we have a free, fair election under a neutral government. Never mind what do you name. How do you name the government is not very important, but a neutral government must supervise the election. Now, of course, for any country to say I am a democratic, the first thing you look at how the government is elected. If the government only possesses to elect the government, and election is the finest invention of the human being, that when you allow some people to rule over many people, how do you choose who will rule you? We are not talking about we are not talking about the 1,000 years ago. We are talking about 21st century. So how do you allow few to rule many? The only instrument human has devised is the election. And that election must be free, fair, acceptable and competitive. That means all party who is bound to be in power, they must compete in the election.
Well, in the very policy, I mean the visa policy, it is a policy, it is not a law at all. It may wither away any time if the American government thinks tomorrow morning. If there is any threat to the opposition regarding violence, or say, I will not go to the election, okay, but I will resist the election. If you say that resist the election, there is the violation. Then how do you explain this?
You make it two part. Right now, we are fighting to create an environment, create a situation under which there will be a free, fair, acceptable and competitive election. Now there will be if we cannot achieve that and government is going to go for election on their own way, then of course we have to resist. Resist for what? Resist for free, fair election because there is a deficit trust with the government. 2014 election, 54 or 64 was elected before the election. So why you need a parliamentary election at all? Spending money. 2018, we sent a very respectable political leader who was basically ex-Awami Leaguer, he was an ex-foreign minister, respected lawyer, to negotiate. And with him, we also have gone to the PM. PM has committed free, fair election. But her people has stolen the election at night. So why should anybody believe and trust on the Awami League and on the Prime Minister at this point, the leader of the Awami League, that if you negotiate something, she will be able to keep it. So that is why we are saying that only condition will be created if the government resigns. So our story, part of the story one, is to create a condition for a free, fair election. So the second part is the real election. Now this visa restriction policy, whatever you are talking about, it also includes the process. Now I can tell you from the 19th of this month, when the BNP had a district-wise these protest meetings, you know, over 170 cases were filed, 5,500 being accused, no names. Under these circumstances, you cannot create a process which is fair for a free, fair election. So the first thing is this government must resign. And I think the visa restriction will apply also, that in the process of creating the environment or for the free, fair election, anybody who is going to, like for example, false cases, or any police is going to arrest you unnecessarily, also will be under this restriction. If not, we will ask to include them. Because it is two different things. You have to, first you have to create the condition. Then you have to ensure process is right. Then you have to ensure on the day of voting, people can go to the polling station without fear, without any obstruction, without any problem. Then when you go into the polling station, people can vote in a confidential manner the way they want to vote. The third is, if they can vote, then the counting will be fair. That means truth. And if they count it right, then the declaration will be right also. Because under the Awami League, first you cannot go to the voting place. Second, if you go there people stand there, so you cannot really apply your voting rights. The third is, they don't count it right. Even they count it right, they declare something else on the radio and TV. So what we are doing now, we are fighting as a citizen of the country to create the environment first, and then we will talk about the process. For example, unless you do some changes in the law and order people, in the judiciary, you cannot have a fair election. So I think those who are your friendly countries, those who had been helping you for your economic growth, for your economic development, they are also a stakeholder in the country. So I am, as a citizen, I am also a stakeholder. But because I am a citizen of this country, I have more stakes than they have. So if we are trying to achieve something, if you are trying to help to achieve that, I think there is no problem on that. I am not unhappy about that.
Well, there is a very, very, very shortest question to you, asking to you. Once upon a time, you were very close to Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, and everyone knows it. Especially in 1996 election, later days, afterwards, and now you are allied with BNP. Suppose if there is anything, I think there is a possibility on your part that you may play a role between BNP and Awami League, because you are close to both the leaders. If anything happens like this, are you ready?
There was a time for that. But I don't think now, even for me, it is possible, because there may be a time, if government is going to resign, if my party asks me, I can always approach to her, and I never said anything wrong against her. I might say a lot of things against the government, but I have never said personally against any of the political leaders. So I don't think that opportunity exists anymore, number one. Number two, of course, this is not my personal initiative. This initiative has to get taken by the parties together. It is not only me.
Yeah.
This country, we want peaceful. We want economic growth. We want creating employment. We want economic development. We want living condition of the all Bangladeshi citizens to improve. We want reduction of the income equality. We want reduction of the social inequality. So if you are going to achieve all these, which we have to at some point, then there has to be some kind of political consensus among the big political parties for the future of this country. And I had been saying that for the last 20 years. I am still saying today, it is not one party or the other. It is all the parties have to get together for the better future of our country.
Well, thank you very much. You talked on so many things, and what you say, that is already passed to the audience. It is up to the audience to decide. And thank you very much. We'll meet you again very soon on the same dais, on the same chair. We'll be sitting there. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, viewers, we are having talks with Mr. Abdul Awal Mintoo, one of the icon industrialist and former president of FBCCI, Bangladesh. And he talked on so many things. And it is Abdul Awal Mintoo who played a vital role once upon a time. And again, there is enough opportunities on his part. If his party allows him to proceed, that is his version. And we do also believe, because men like Abdul Awal Mintoo may be a rare personality in the history of Bangladesh. And we hope whatever he said, whatever he uttered, whatever he commented, that is belong to him. And it is up to you to judge. And thank you very much for the time being. Thank you.